This 11-story hotel is unlike anything Melbourne has ever seen. With an amazing rooftop bar and gathering space, incredible conference facilities, and of course, amazing guest rooms and suites like this one. So if you have friends and family coming to town for a visit, or want to go out and enjoy downtown Melbourne's great restaurants, bars, and shopping for a night or two, Hotel Melby is the place to be. Hi, and welcome back to the 411 on the 321. Tales, tenets, and tips from Space Coast business leaders brought to you by the Melbourne Regional Chamber. I'm your host, Mel Thomas, joining you as usual from the gorgeous Hotel Melby, downtown Melbourne. I'm very excited today to welcome my new guest, John Frazier, who is a partner at Widerman Malek. Welcome, John.
Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. So we're going to be right back with John. We're going to have a few words from our champion sponsor, Hedrick Brothers Construction.
Since 1979, Hedrick Brothers Construction has been delivering quality construction for the commercial and luxury residential markets of South Florida. In 2020, a team of 2 expanded into the Space Coast region and opened an office here in Melbourne. 3 years later, the team's grown to over a dozen professionals, working on large, local projects and investing in our community. The sky's the limit for the Hedrick team. Get to know them. You'll be glad you did.
Welcome back. So John, I'm so excited to talk to you this morning. It is gorgeous outside. So let's get right started if you're okay with it.
Absolutely.
Okay. So for anyone unfamiliar with Widerman Malek, who are you and who do you serve?
So I'm a partner over at Widerman Malek. We have 2 office locations, one in Melbourne, one in Celebration. We have 30 some odd attorneys. We practice pretty much everything but criminal defense and personal injury. So that's the breadth of the firm. We have been around the community for, I think, almost 20 some years that Widerman Malek's been here. And I kind of got involved a long time ago when I was 15 years old as a runner. And that's kind of how I got started.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah,
I want to hear,
sure.
how did you know at a young age what you wanted to do? How did you get down this path?
No. So the first experience I had with a law firm was Widerman Malek, but I was 15, 16, 17, and I was a runner. So back in those days, which I'm 36 now, so it's not that long ago, but the court filings were still in person. So you'd have to run the court filings down to the courthouse at 3:30, go get the mail, take it to the post office, get people's food. You know, if it was, hey, can I get the car washed? Kind of the grunt task.
Sure.
And run around cleaning up the bathroom, stuff like that. So I did all those things. And then I developed a relationship with Scott and Malek, so Widerman and Malek. And through the years, it kind of just continued where I'd pop in, from college or different high school stuff and intern there. And then that kind of segued into this where I decided, okay, I think I want to go to law school. I didn't know at first, and it took a while to get there, and my path wasn't a straight path there. And once I decided that I want to do that, then it's like, I think I want to do that, and I also want to come back here and do it. Because I'm from the area. I love the area. I grew up here. I went to elementary school, middle school, high school down in Melbourne. So it just fit for what I wanted to do in life, I think.
I love a story like that, like from runner to partner, but also started in Brevard, major kind of way, but ended up back here.
Yep, I've lived in Tampa, Orlando, and Tallahassee, and ended up coming back. And it's funny because growing up here, it was always kind of Melbourne.
Couldn't wait to get out,
Couldn't wait to get out. And then you go out and you realize that it's not always greener out there, and there's plenty of issues with other towns or cities. And then my wife is also from here, so she went to Palm Bay High, and so both of our families are here. And then you come back and you realize you got all the water, the beaches. It's not so bustling that it's out of control, and there's been so much growth even from when I was a kid, where I remember Viera, and it was just the baseball fields and the courthouse out there.
Right.
And now
it's
every time I go to the courthouse, there's a brand new thing. So it just seemed like the right fit for us to come back, and very, very happy here. And I think it's a great place to raise a family and to do business.
I couldn't agree more. I think it's really special. And we talked to a lot of people that came up and couldn't wait to get out, went out, and then realized how very special it was, and how it wasn't such a bad place after all, and fight their way back here.
Yeah, it's amazing because and maybe it's just wherever you grew up, no matter where you were, it's kind of like you want to get out and prove that you're somebody, go do something else, and not stay at home with your mom and your dad or something like that, right? And you go do that for a bit and you realize Brevard and Melbourne in general is a great place.
Good. Well, we're glad you're back.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to see what you guys do here, especially
Yeah.
with your kids, if they're going to spread their wings or they're going to figure it out early, if it's that special. So on your website, I want to make sure that I get this right. We take a down-to-earth and common sense approach to your complex legal issues. Can you kind of tell us, how do you walk that walk? What does that look like? And how does that mission serve your clients?
Sure. So a lot of we make sure that representation is collaborative, because there's times where, you don't just show up to a law firm and you drop off 500 documents and you walk away and say, handle my case. People sometimes do that or expect those things.
That's how it looks on TV.
And that's okay. Yeah, and it's never like it looks on TV.
Okay.
But we do that, so there's constant communication. There's the fact that your attorneys and counselors at law, so we joke that there is the human element that you have to always consider, is that we're usually representing people, even if it's business litigation, it can be as bad as a divorce, especially if it's two partners splitting up a medicine practice that they just started or something else like that. It can be just as rough.
Yeah. And
we have to realize that these are people that we're playing with their lives, and we're like a doctor without the scalpel, or you know what I mean? And this is your money, this is your business, and we have to take care of that. And we do that through the collaborative approach with representation. We invoice monthly so that you're not shocked with stuff. And even on the invoice, down to those things, it shows who worked in the file, a brief description of the work, how much time was spent. So there's a bunch of transparency. And I think sometimes when people retain lawyers, there's a lack of transparency as to what am I paying for, what am I getting, what's going on with my case. And that should not be the case with us.
And I like how you kind of shift that perception of maybe there's been some mistrust in the past, or don't believe everything you see on TV.
Right.
Lawyers are not distrustful, and you kind of are breaking down those barriers and saying, here's what I'm billing you for. Here's exactly who worked on it. Here's what happened.
Yeah, and I've even gone so far as created a letter now that we utilize that as soon as the client's signed up, it tells them the attorneys that are on the file, even down to the paralegals and our intake specialists and everything else, because you don't want to look at the bill and realize I'm being billed by an attorney I don't even know who they are, and they're charging me hourly rates, and do they even know anything about my case? And so that's where I think some of the common sense approach comes from, is that it has to be transparent and it has to be collaborative.
I love it. And I also love the part that you talked about, like, let's say it was a business separation, that this is kind of like someone's baby. They started this business, blood, sweat, tears, sleepless nights, but there are also employees that are probably involved in this too, and they have their own families and their own ecosystems. So you're right, it's complex, but we're still dealing with people.
Yeah, and that's what I think, even going through law school, that you don't realize in law school, but when you come out and practice, is that the practice of law it's about humans. It's not as much about the law. And when you realize that, and you have to balance the personalities and figuring out that you're trying to help people navigate circumstances, and the case may be about one thing, but what's driving the case?
Right.
What's the motivation for my client? What's the motivation for the other side? And how do we try to drive that to a resolution that's in the best interest of everybody?
Good. I love it. So Widerman Malek's been a partner of the Melbourne Regional Chamber for, going on 16 plus years now. I wonder if you can kind of talk about what drove the decision to join, and then how are you using that partnership to your business advantage?
So as far as driving the decision to join, that predated me, because
Sure,
I've been there. I go back a long time, but I've only been an attorney there for 6 years, I think, at this point. I would say that it's what drives it is really the fact that a strong chamber is really important to the district. It's really important to the city, and that involvement for the networking opportunities, the advertising for different events. I've been able to meet and network with a lot of people through the chamber, and that's helped grow my book of business as just a individual partner. And so I think that's the involvement, that's a help it's been. And even I'm involved in the downtown, Melbourne Main Street board.
Oh, we love them.
So even involved in that, you keep seeing there's talks of where the chamber's located and all the development back here, and would it ever move out of downtown. And I think it's so important for a region to have a strong chamber.
And strong partners and
Yeah,
loyal partners
absolutely.
like you. So I know they appreciate over a decade's worth of support. So thank you.
Well,
Looking for the next
I only get a
16
couple years of thanks for that, but I'll take all
You
of
can
it.
take, you
all
showed
of
up
it.
this morning, so you get to take full credit for all of this work. Okay, good. I'm sure you have a bunch, but what's one of your favorite parts of your job?
I think the fact of how dynamic it is, because at most of the cases that I deal with, they ultimately end up being a breach of contract.
Okay.
So it may be about airplanes, it might be about boats, it might be about two doctors that get in a dispute and splitting up a practice, to a homeowner constructing a house, and either we represent a GC or the homeowner. But that's what I like about it, is even though it's breach of contract, the subject matter is so vast and wide that I end up dipping my toes and learning all kinds of stuff that is completely different, right? So the principles are the same, but the subject matter can change.
Right.
And so that's a big part that I like, is that it's not the same. And when you're dealing with people and personalities and all these different things that come into play, you just quite never know exactly what you're going to get. And
there's that people part again.
The people part.
Yeah.
So it keeps you on your toes. And you think a case can go one way and it starts changing the other way. It's not like TV where all of a sudden some evidence pops up and it changes
There's
everything.
no like Perry Mason moment?
No,
Okay.
usually there's not. I mean, if I have one or two, in my career, that's exciting, right? But that's not usually how it happens. So I would say that it's been the dynamic nature of I'm a litigator, really. I don't do a lot of transactional stuff, but the firm does. And I think litigation is what makes it so dynamic, because you have to be able to think on your feet.
Very cool. So what's next for Widerman Malek?
Well, I think the growth is probably what we're looking at.
Okay.
We have recently been at a rate of hiring 1 to 2 attorneys per year, sometimes a little bit more. And we're still looking for more attorneys and more staff. And so maybe another office location. There's conversations about those things.
That's a nice teaser. Okay.
So expansion or growing the firm, I think, is probably where it's at. And the culture of how the firm's at this point is, I'm older, but I'm still young. And, a lot of the older partners that have been there that founded it they're not going to be practicing for the next 30 years.
Sure.
And so I think a lot of it too is succession, and how does that transpire, and making sure my generation of lawyers at the firm don't drop the baton when it's passed off to us, and making sure that everyone understands that Widerman Malek has a certain principles and a certain reputation and a standard of practice that's going to be the same today, 30 years from now.
And I think a lot of all different industries face those kind of challenges, right? You want to stand on that solid foundation that you were built upon, but how do you stay relevant? How do you stay with the times, and how do you take it to the next 30 years? So good for you guys.
Yeah, and I mean, you have dynamic things, the chat GPT, AI stuff,
right?
And how does that influence the legal industry and all these other problems that, not necessarily problems, but things that come up that are unexpected.
Right.
The practice of law may not look the same today as it will 30 years from now, and I'm going to have to be the one handling that, not Widerman, because he's going to ride off in the sunset,
right?
And enjoy his retirement. And I'm going to be the one.
I do not think you're going to be bored at all.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Good thing you like to learn, because I think there's going to be a lot coming your way for sure.
Yes.
So you mentioned adding some more attorneys. Are you currently hiring right now?
We are. We're almost always considering hiring and taking resumes.
Okay.
Staff, we're always looking for staff. I think we have a very low turnover rate, but it's still we're growing, and it's one of those things where you kind of get to the point where it seems like everyone's at their capacity, and it's like, okay, we need to add more, and we can't possibly add another attorney here, especially in Melbourne. And next thing you know, it's we need another attorney.
Yeah.
And we're almost to the point with our current office location in Melbourne that we're running out of space to put people. And so I think that's a very good problem to have, but we're always hiring.
Okay. And so if somebody's interested, whether being support staff, administrator, or an attorney, your website, is that where they should go? Okay.
Website. They can even, sometimes I'm involved in the hiring process because it depends on what the position is, but the firm does estates, trust, probate work. I don't do any of those things. They deal with intellectual property. So patents, trademarks, copyrights, litigation with all revolving around that. I don't do anything with that, but we have other partners that do. There's just a guardianship stuff that I don't deal with, but the firm does. So It's one of those things where it doesn't matter what area of law that the attorney practices, but if they reach out, even if they email me, that's okay. And I can make sure it gets in the right hands, or they reach out to HR and follow the parts of the website to get to it. But
okay. So if somebody's interested in just seeing all the positions and all the availability, can you share your website with us?
Sure. So it's www.legalteamusa.net.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So, John, what's next for you personally?
I think next for me, it's trying to help take the mantle of the next generation for the firm,
Okay.
and seeing how that transpires, because I have to eventually take the baton, and not just me, but the other partners and attorneys that are in my age range and group. We have to collectively take the baton from the Maleks, the Widermans, the Warzekas, the attorneys there, and then say, they've built this, and can we sustain it? And
Sure.
what can we do to grow it and make it better so that when it comes my turn, I can pass that baton down? And there's a fun dynamic with that, is that Widerman's son, Jared, is in law school. And so there's a lot of jokes with that, as far as I'm going to be the one that gets to kind of torture him and teach him and mentor him now, since Scott did that to me. So,
Okay.
What can I do to build stuff so that I can then pass it off to Jared and say,
Yeah.
Jared, it's your turn, or whatever attorney's hired who comes in, it's your turn now. And so I think it's about making sure that the firm isn't just a blip.
That's interesting. So are there still runners, or is that position eliminated with technology now?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's eliminated just
Okay.
because the court filings, you can do it with a couple clicks and you filed something. So we have staff that helps with stuff that it's not. We don't need a runner, I guess.
So no one has to run around like you did and work their way up to partner yet?
No one has to go take cars to get washed.
Okay.
And do all some of
Runner will not
kinda-
be one of the
kinda things.
positions that you see on their website.
Correct,
Okay, good. So this is the time in the interview where we ask all of our guests, if you could just leave us with a little pearl of wisdom, something you learned along the way, or somebody imparted some advice, it served you well in your personal or professional life and you think might resonate.
I think it's consistency.
Okay.
I was an athlete growing up, and looking at that, when any of the great athletes, any even great business people, right? A lot of people have the capability or the skill to do things. What usually makes somebody great or last, it's the consistency. It's, okay, you can make this shot, you can do this thing one time, but can you do it 100 out of 100 times? That's hard.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think is the key in my approach, is trying to be as consistent as possible. Sure, any lawyer can win a case, but can you keep winning cases? Can you win the vast majority of your cases? Or you can make one client happy, but can you make all the other 100 happy? Or the 1,000, or whatever else it is. So I think it's the consistency of approach, that you have to day in, day out do the right things and not get lazy.
Right. And constantly be learning and readjusting, like
Absolutely.
we talked about.
Be dynamic and understand that what worked today may not work tomorrow.
Right.
And the legal industry is slow to change, but I don't want our firm to be slow to recognize shifts.
Okay. I have no doubt. We're going to see great things from you all.
I appreciate it.
I think we've seen them in the past. We're seeing them right now with the expansions and the new attorneys and then your leadership. I can't wait to see what's in store for Widerman Malek in the future.
I'm definitely excited about it.
Good. Well, thanks again for coming this morning.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome back anytime.
I
Stay in
appreciate
touch,
it.
and thanks again for your support of the Chamber.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
So for more information on Widerman Malek or any of the Melbourne Regional Chamber partners, please visit their website, melbourneregionalchamber.com. Again, I've been your host, Mel Thomas. I'd like to give a huge thank you to the Hotel Melby for putting us up in this gorgeous suite this morning, for Anthony Demalia and Tightline Productions for making us look so good this morning. And as always, thank you to Isabella Serrano, Marketing and Communications Manager for the Melbourne Regional Chamber, who produces the 411 on the 321. We'll see you next time.